What I wanted to jump into today is just some common parasite things that we see. And so digestive related symptoms with parasitic stuff, chronic bloating, especially after meals, that's a sign of parasite stuff, excess gas, alternating constipation, diarrhea, that's a parasitic symptom, mucus in the stool, and then persistent food sensitivities or intolerances to food. That's like a small intestine symptom, but very highly related to parasitic stuff as well. So that's like some gut related stuff. Feeling full quickly or poor digestion despite eating clean. That could be because there's an underlying infection there. Parasites are very high on the list for that for me. So in the energy metabolic world, chronic fatigue that doesn't resolve with rest can be linked to parasites. Low stamina despite good sleep. Iron deficiency is huge. I see this one more commonly is something stealing our iron, and parasites and bacteria are linked to that big time. Or B12 deficiencies or unexplained anemias, those can go back to that parasitic stuff. Cravings for sugar or refined carbohydrates, that is both yeast, so candida yeast or parasites. I see both do that. And then just feeling drained after meals. So feeling drained after meals or feeling like you need a nap, that's poor digestion. So that kind of goes back to making sure you're slowing down, chewing your food, not being in cortisol, sympathetic dominance during eating. And then if you're doing all those things and you're still feeling drained after meals, apple cider vinegar. And if that's not helping, then I'm like, yeah, there might be an underlying infection going on. And then in the skin kind of immune area, chronic eczema, so rashes, huge with parasites. I find parasites a ton with chronic eczema. Anal itching, especially at night, that's like a key one in the parasite world. Persistent acne or unexplained skin flares, that goes back to that kind of eczema-y thing. Sinus infections, frequent like colds, poor immune function. Parasites will imbalance your immune system. And so they'll make one part of your immune system keep working for longer than it should. And then here's another common one I see too is histamine type reactions without any clear triggers. So mold can cause that, and parasites I usually find with histamine type reactivity. So that would be in that skin realm of things. And sometimes too, if you've had chronic parasites, that's usually a sign there's still a toxin in the system, a metal, a mold, a chemical, something still in the system. And then sometimes we might need to dose up on parasite stuff too. So in the neurological world, kind of mood, that brain fog can be a lot of things, but parasites one. Anxiety, irritability, or mood swings. So I see this a lot with parasites, and it's clogging up the liver a lot. If the liver's not working great, that's very much irritability, kind of mood, that short temper type of thing. That's liver type symptomatology. Restless sleep, that's a big one with parasites. I've seen night terrors or just like bad dreams be parasitic type stuff. Teeth grinding, clenching, very common with parasitic things. And then headaches and migraines with no clear issue, no clear cause. I've treated a lot of migraines with that symptomatology too. And then hormonal shifts, so irregular menses for my females or like worsening PMS around cycles. And then worse hormone symptoms despite your labs being normal. Thyroid symptoms without any clear autoimmune markers. I've seen that. So I actually have one of my patients that does have autoimmune, and we really hit parasites hard, and she dropped 20 pounds just because we took that load off and her thyroid started working again. And so that was a good one with parasite stuff. And then inflammation that won't calm down despite our eating. So if we're having random inflammation things, that's very classic parasitic type things. Okay. That's the big symptomatology. And then some of the information, this is just informative. So like why parasites are so commonly missed. So symptoms are very non-specific, like that list that we just went through. That could be a lot of overlap. So it could be SIBO, it could be mold illness, it could be HPA axis dysfunction, it could be nutrient depletion. There's a lot of things that overlap with parasites, and you have to do different things. So one of the things that we do in the office is we have a parasite probability questionnaire. So what's the probability that you have parasites going on? And if you score high on that, then I'm like, okay, that's probably a sign that they're there. A couple of ones that I look for on that questionnaire is drooling in your sleep. That's a big one for me that triggers. I'm like, okay, there's probably some parasites going on. Anal itching is a pretty obvious one for that as well. Yeah, those are probably my big two that I look at. If you score high on that, I'm like, yeah, there's probably some things. And then for me, probabilities, how much are you around livestock? How much do you have dogs and cats and things that can carry parasites? And we might be more likely to get that. Standard stool tests, they often miss the parasitic stuff. Sometimes they're catching the shedding that parasites do. Sometimes we're passing them and we don't have the full genome mapped out for parasites. And so there's thousands of different genus and species of parasites, and we're only testing for a handful on that stool test. So that's one of the limitations of that test. The other one is parasites secrete an enzyme once they die to break themselves down. And so once you pass them out of the stool and say that we send that stool test into the lab, so by the time we put that in the kit and send it off, we don't know what it looks like by the time it gets to that. And so that's another limitation to that test as well. So another one, why it's commonly missed. Many people assume parasites are only a concern with international travel, but they're here, they're everywhere. Doorknobs, dirt, they're everywhere. And then parasites can suppress immune signaling. So your blood labs can look relatively normal, and so you're not going to go after looking for parasites unless you do stuff like we do and are asking the right questions, right? So that's why they're commonly missed. And then it can coexist with certain things like SIBO or dysbiosis. It can coexist with toxin retention, can coexist with nutrient depletions. All of these things overlap with each other. But if you feel like you're doing everything right and you feel stuck, sometimes it's time to just do a parasite cleanse. And if you've done parasite cleanses, one of the things I encourage people to do is maybe do a higher dose full moon cleanse. Because sometimes you might just not be hitting the therapeutic effect to get those things to move and get out of the system. Or sometimes we'll do something more potent as well. So just some fun parasite stuff. We haven't talked about parasites a lot, and I wanted to throw this in there if you're still having some symptomatology wrapped around that, what it could be linked to. A good place to start if you've never done any parasite stuff is Cellcore's Para 1 and 2. It's pretty gentle but effective. You can start to higher dose some of that stuff if you've been on it already. Yeah, you can do some full moon cleanse with the higher dose on some of that. You can definitely consult us when doing some of that too. But yeah, usually biannually is what I recommend. If you've been through parasite cleansing, twice a year at least, you should be going through a bottle of something to parasite cleanse. In my kiddos, one of the things that I see is their personality will shift. They'll start being more tantrumy. Their sleep might get disrupted, or their normal mood is just shifting. And that's a sign that it's time to do some parasite work. So pay attention to yourself too. You can see it too. Maybe you're a little more irritable than normal, or a little more snappy, short-tempered. That could be a sign your liver's backed up, and what's causing your liver to back up can be parasitic stuff. Would metal cleanse remove parasites? Yes. I actually just had a patient today. So this is a common thing too. So if you're doing metal cleanses, what happens is the toxins within a parasite, when they study this, the toxins in a parasite are 10 times more potent than the surrounding tissue. And so those parasites are absorbing that for us. But as we cleanse even chemicals, I've seen it with chemical detox or metal detox, you start lessening the load of your total body burden, and then your immune system kicks on and it'll say, hey, I don't need these parasites anymore because my toxic load came down enough to where I can start pushing these out on my own. So yeah, I've definitely seen some parasite stuff with some metal cleanse. And one of the symptoms of my patient today, she's like, man, I had really bad bloating and then my lymph swelled up really bad and I was doing all this stuff and all we were doing was metal cleanse. And she said it felt like she was trying to pass something. And I'm like, well, yeah, you were. And that's a time for better drainage. So things like coffee enemas and sweating and things like that to help that move out of your system. So you don't necessarily have to take parasite stuff, but you can pass parasites. Okay, guys. Have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next Thursday.